Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today, and my next guest is somebody who I've known for a pretty long time. Of course, you've heard me say on almost every interview that these are people I've known for a long time, but I've known Ralf a long time. Of course, here he is, my good friend, and probably the world's most popular washboard player in this day and age. Although I know that he's now using it to wash clothes with, that's beside the point. Here he is, Mr. Ralf Reynolds.
Hola, amigo.
Hi, Ralf. How's it going?
All is well.
It's really funny. I tell people that I used to wear Hawaiian shirts all the time when I was in college, so they knew what jokes to tell around me. Now, there's not a whole lot of information on you online. I research every one of these interviews and scour the internet for tasty bits people may be surprised for me to learn, and there's really not a whole lot on you, sir.
Well, what would you like to know?
Well, I'd like to know, does it hurt when you do this? No. Let's start at the very, very beginning, before you, and talk about Zazu.
Zezu.
If you say so. and the relationship between you.
Well, Zezu Pitts was my grandmother, actress, starting back 1915. I think she made her first movie. Went all the way through the silent era, into the talkies, into television, and then her last movie she was in had a small part in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
I didn't know that.
And that was in 1963. 7 months after they filmed the movie, she passed away.
Oh my! What a long career.
Yeah, and she's credited for over 500 movies.
Oh, she was absolutely gorgeous. On top of it all, and funny.
Of course, when she passed away, I was only 11 years old, and so she was only a grandmother to me. And the only thing I really remember about anything about her movie thing, well, she took us when she was filming the Gale Storm show. We did go to the studios a few times, but we're just little kids. But every time we go somewhere, someone would recognize her, and they would go up to her, and they would always mispronounce her name. Zuzu, Zazu, or something. But she would always say, no, it's pronounced Zezu. And she was actually named after her mother's two sisters, Eliza. They took the ZA off Eliza, and her other sister was Susan, and they took the SU off Susan. So she spelled it capital Z, little a, capital S, little U, and her name was Zezu. It was actually my mom's name also.
Okay.
But my mom, everyone made fun of my mom because of the name, so she always used her middle name, which was Anne.
Huh. Well, people who have names that start with Z are just notoriously crazy anyway. Although in my case, it's my last name. What can I say? I know that connection. I've known that Zezu was your grandmother, and I know about, of course, you and your brother, but you very seldom talk about your own parents.
Oh yeah, mom and dad.
Were they talented?
Well, they were not musically. My dad had learned to play the bones a little bit from his father, my grandfather, but that was it. Other than liking to listen to records. So my grandmother tried to get my mom into acting, but my mom would go to these screen preview or reviews and then get stage fright and freeze. So that didn't go anywhere. They both were Stanford graduates. They met at Stanford University and were married. And then first myself and then brother John came along a year and a half later. And there you have it.
That's exactly what I wanted to know. In fact, I didn't even know that you were older than John, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm a year and a half older than John.
And wiser?
I wouldn't say that. Bigger. I'm bigger.
Okay. Now, where did you go to school? Let's start with elementary.
What's that?
Let's start with elementary school.
Oh gosh, elementary. I went to Linda Vista Elementary School in Pasadena, McKinley Junior with a junior high, and then in high school we moved. My parents were divorced, and my dad moved John and I down to Laguna Beach, where I graduated from high school from Laguna Beach.
Okay, were you born in Pasadena?
I was born in the California Hospital in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And then, but basically, I consider Laguna Beach my hometown because that's where I really knew what was going on.
Sure.
And then after Laguna, I attended the University of Oregon School of Music.
Okay, I didn't know.
Where I was a bass major. In high school, I had played saxophone.
That I know, yeah.
And had obtained, thanks to my dad, a bass saxophone. And so I went to the University of Oregon and I wanted to major on bass saxophone, and they wouldn't let me.
Well, they knew about Adrian Rollini, and it was a good choice by them.
But they said you can, the largest saxophone we'll go with is the Barry sax. And so I switched to bass instruments. And so I played bass saxophone, bass clarinet, bass flute. I played all the woodwinds, but the upright bass became actually my principal instrument, upright and electric. And being a bass major, I had to learn the tuba. And I didn't know anything about the tubas, and I went down and bought one, and it turned out to be a little E-flat tuba. But I practiced. I learned to play tuba to get into the concert band at the University of Oregon. And so I was actually a bass major. That was my principal instrument, was upright bass. And then I ended up going to school back in Southern California, and then graduating from Biola University in La Mirada.
Right. If you remember right, I actually borrowed your bass sax from you once.
Oh, did you? No, I don't remember.
Yeah, I borrowed it for about a year, and you took it back when you moved to Florida. But I was trying my foot in that pool when I was playing with Misbehavin'. And foolishly, I think for maybe 5 or 6 rehearsals, I brought along my tuba, my string bass, and the bass sax, and decided that was really dumb. Just from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, you've got to have a lot of friends helping you out there.
But I love bass sax. It is a wonderful sound, and I think a neglected instrument, actually.
Yeah, Paul Woltz is one of my favorite all-time players on bass saxophone.
Yeah, actually, I still play with Randy a lot.
Randy Woltz, yeah, sure.
Yeah. But Paul's wonderful, and he's a whole nother 4-hour conversation. For Paul, as you know. I forgot which interview it was. It might have been Bob Ringwald. But on one of my other interviews, I mentioned you. And I said, yeah, I understand that he played sax originally. And somebody said, yeah, terribly. It might have been Ringwald. I'm not sure. Or maybe Dan Comans. It's one of those guys. But, yeah, I knew that. So tell me, Ralph. Did you ever think you'd actually be able to make a living on Washboard?
No, it was a crazy thing. I'll just kind of give you a little back how I got into the Washboard.
Sure.
I got my summer job. My first summer job at Disney was in 1970, And I was making drinks, milkshakes, phosphates, sodas at the Cafe Orleans in New Orleans Square.
Okay.
And that summer was, I think, the first summer for the All-American College Band. And there were a bunch of auditions throughout the U.S. and they would be selected to play at Disney for the summer. And I heard them out there and I went, gosh, that'd be a great thing to get into. And so anyway, that was my first experience.
Just a side, by the way, Don Neely was in that band.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And when I was at Biola College, I saw in the music room a flyer up for auditions for the Disney All-American College Band. And so I took it down, and at that time, I applied for it, and they send you a packet which required you to do a big beta recording tape with some music they sent you, and then a tune of your choice.
Did they specify beta? I'm just curious. Did they specify beta?
Yes.
Because that was the Sony format. Yeah.
That was the only format they would accept. And so I set up got a girl to help me with the piano, accompany on piano, and I played something on my own choice, a tune on bass saxophone. I think it was Beelzebub or something. Anyway, I was accepted. I got the job to play Barry sax in the All-American College Band. And that year they had two bands. One was at Disneyland, and the other was at Walt Disney World. And of course, I lived, 30 minutes from Disneyland. And of course, they sent me to Disney World. And I think the only reason they took me on saxophone is because I could double on electric bass.
Oh.
And so off to Florida I go. I packed up my little 1963 Carmen Ghia convertible, put my electric bass, my Barry sax. Off to Florida I went, and I had just a fabulous summer. And while I was there, I met a guy who was leader of the Pearly Band at Disney World, a guy named Bill Allred, trombone player.
I know Bill.
And
yes.
So after that summer, I went.
Just if you can hear me, we froze again, but I'm willing to wait. Hang on a second.
Oh, Dan, are you back?
I am. And, I was going to say, I was getting seasick there.
Yeah. Anyway, I graduated from college in '75.
I can edit that out, but
I talked to a friend of mine.
I can edit that out, but it's pretty funny.
Hal Proppy. Hal and I were very good friends. Hal was a banjo player, and I talked him into going back to Florida with me to see if we get jobs at Disney World. So Hal packed up his VW Squareback, and we towed it behind my 1943 Dodge Field Command car. And that truck had a cruising speed of 43 miles an hour. And so what a way to see the U.S., 43 miles an hour all the way across the United States in this old 1943 Dodge Field Command car. Anyway, we get to Florida. I go to the Disney Entertainment. They status me. I was, in my very early 20s. They status me as a string-based sub so I could sub for players at Disney. And they never called me. So I took advantage of my connection who I'd met the summer before, Bill Allred, who's in Pearly Band, who now was that summer, 74, they also opened Rosie O'Grady's in Orlando. And Bill was the entertainment director and band leader for Rosie O'Grady's. So I went down to Rosie O'Grady's, and Bill got me a job. And eventually I moved into doing the happy hour, the cocktail hour, actually, with my friend Hal on banjo, myself on string bass, and either Randy Morris or Jim Mayhack on piano. And while we were there doing the happy hour one time, the head of Disney Entertainment came in, Sonny Anderson, who was a great influence for me, really a great guy. He came in and he had remembered me from a bluegrass audition I did at Disneyland, didn't go anywhere. But he remembered me. He said, Ralph, you come here. He even remembered my name. And he said, listen, we're starting a new band here at the park, and I'd like you to come to the audition. And of course, I'm really excited. And he says, by the way, I'd like you to bring a washboard. And I went, okay. So as excited as I was, I went down to a hardware store, bought a washboard, which you can still buy at hardware stores. You might have a hard time finding one at Home Depot today, but back then, no problem. Get a washboard. And the only experience I'd ever had with a washboard was seeing Bob Raggio play it at Disneyland. The same summer I was in the college band, 74, John became a member of the class of 27 in the Banjo Kings at Disneyland. And so John got me into the park, and I went and saw him do the class of 27 and saw Bob Raggio play the washboard. Because I didn't even have a clue how to hold it. I didn't know if you wore it, if you sat down, I didn't know anything. And I remember Bob wore it, and so I took the strap off my electric bass, put it on the washboard, tried to play along with some records, and then I went to the audition. And then, there's a half a dozen guys that went to the audition, and I did the audition, and I was absolutely awful. But there wasn't anyone any better. So they gave me the job, and that started me off on the washboard. And the more I played it, the more I liked it. And then I kind of got serious about it and started to read about the history of the washboard, where it started in music, and had a fun time with it. And I was able to make a living doing that. Gosh, what was that? 1975 to I stopped. Off and on. I've been with Disney I was at Disney World first in the Banjo Kings, and it turned into the class 27 turned into the Banjo Kings, and then Sonny transferred me back to Disneyland, where I worked until 1979, I guess, with my friend Hal in the Main Street Maniacs. We formed a new group there called the Main Street Maniacs. We had, you probably know, Jeff Beaumont, Steve Resnick.
I still play with Jeff.
My friend Hal Proppy, myself, and Charlie Warren on tuba.
Yes.
And then after a while, I was replaced Bob Raggio in the Banjo Kings in the class 27. So now I get to play with Westy, my good friend Westy, John on banjo, Sonny Helmer, fabulous trombone player. That was the kind of guy that, he knew more. He had forgotten more tunes than I will ever know. He was just phenomenal. And another banjo player named Jerry Holton, and that made up the Banjo Kings. And I did that for a while. Then I left Disney and was in the Army for 4 years. Taught school a little bit, and then Sonny Anderson approached me again and asked me if I'd like to go back to Disney World. And so I ended up going back, starting a band in 1989, Pleasure Island, and then finally moved to the Yacht Club, where I had a small swing quartet, which was a great little group. I don't know if you know Harry Waters on trombone, Don Mopsick, who later played with Jim Cullum Band on upright bass, Pete Bordenali, fabulous guitar player, and myself on drums, or actually the field snare with brushes. And that's where I met my sweet south of the border wife, Gladys. And we met in 1990 at the opening of the Yacht Club. And in 1992, we were married. And in 1991, they actually moved me back to Main Street at the Magic Kingdom to start a new band, replace the Banjo Kings that were there. And that was became the Main Street Rhythm Rascals. And that was a fun group. And we did that. And I had the opportunity to do that for, I guess, a little over 10 years. And then back to, kept our home in Florida, but moved back to California, where I worked for a church for a while. And then Disney brought me back, thanks to Stan Fries, who was head of Disney Entertainment, another tuba player, great guy, and brought me back as a contract musician to work at Disney California Adventure. And I did that with several years with my brother, John, as a small group, known as the Ellis Island Boys at the Paradise Garden Bandstand. And then just a little over a year ago, my wife and I moved to Honduras. So there you have it. There's there's kind of my life in a thimble.
Tell people a little bit about Sonny Helmer's routine that he did at Disney.
Oh, yeah, Sonny Helmer was great. He was a trombone player and that just knew every lead. You know, a trombone's really not a lead instrument, but Sonny Helmer knew all the leads to everything. And we actually did this in the class 20, had a thing where he would, outside of Disney, he would chug a pitcher of beer. And this is, of course, with having it balanced on top of his head while he's playing his trombone on one leg and using his other foot for his slide. And then at Disneyland, he would chug, but it wasn't beer; it was watered down Pepsi, I think. And he chugged that whole thing down, and then go into his routines, and then had all the jokes, play another footnote, or went to Shoe CLA and LSU and, things like that. He was a real comic, had a million one-liners. But what amazed me more than anything else was he knew all the words to all the songs, and he knew all the verses to all the songs.
Westy told me that you replaced his watered-down Pepsi with a few other items on occasion.
Oh, was he referring to the Twinkies?
No, he was referring to the, I think it was prune juice.
Oh. Okay, yeah, that'll keep you regular. Yeah.
And then Westy also told me about what happened, I think it was on Banu's last day, and when she backed up to him to get the lollipop.
I don't remember.
Oh. Westy said during the break he had gone outside to the hot dog stand and picked up a steamer, a hot dog, and brought it back in. And in the routine where she backs up to Westy and he would hand her a lollipop to give to a kid in the audience, he slapped this hot dog in her hand. And she couldn't see what it was. And evidently she went, woo! And it went across the stage under the sound cabinet. And then she turned around and he had a lollipop in his hand. And just held the lollipop in his hand and smiled at her.
Oh.
So anyway, am I freezing?
You're freezing.
Uh-oh.
Frozen. Oh, well, yeah, come on down to Honduras.
So anyway, yeah, there are a lot of things that happened, I guess, within the Disney hazing or guys playing practical jokes on one another.
Oh, yes.
Any come to mind that we can talk about?
Oh, you're probably referring to the whoopee cushion incident.
Well, there are a couple different incidents, but yeah, let's hear that one.
Oh, wow. This was John in the class of 27 did a tune called The Sheik of Araby. And in the tune, Westy would blow up a whoopee cushion and John would go out and do a solo. And part of the solo was squeezing the whoopee cushion to rhythmic sounds. Okay, so there's the whoopee cushion. And then we would put it under our arms, under our coats, and then, squeeze it, out and kind of look at each other like, where did that come from? Well, we came up with the idea, we being myself, Westy, and John, to pull a prank on the drummer of the daytime show in the Horseshoe. What was his name? Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was a drummer and had the personality of what did he have? Well, he had the personality of probably of a dead beaver. This guy just was. He was a very stern. Gosh, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Anyway, what we thought we'd do is put the whoopee cushion. The daytime show would start off with some little bit of announcement, and then the pit band would come down off the stage and go in the pit band, and then the show would start for the Horseshoe. This is the daytime show. Well, we had placed the whoopee cushion under, Jerry Holton. No, it wasn't Jerry Holton. Anyway, under the drummer's seat. And then he had He had a stool, and on top of the stool, he had a pad, and we put the whoopee cushion between the stool and the pad. And then when he came down, the piano player sat down first, the trumpet player was there, and he came down and sat on the pad, and all of it was like a, and then he got up and went back down. Well, he was professional enough that he didn't lose a beat and just kept going. Well, Westy and I were up in the mezzanine, and we were laughing so hard there was no noise coming out of our mouth. We were rolling on the ground. And then we both walked back behind the stage, and he comes backstage during the show, and he's pointing his straps. And Hal Proppy is there, I'm there, and Westy's there, and he pushes Hal into me, and I fall on the floor. We're still laughing, and he's taking his finger and pointing at Westy, and then he takes off. Well, that was Disney didn't think that was funny. And so anyway, the union got involved in a whole bunch of other things, but that was just one of many things that happened backstage at Disneyland.
Oh, you mischievous guys. So tell me, did you ever think that you would be kind of the lead for what happened with the washboard world across the country? It became just a huge organization, fan club, society.
Oh yeah, Washboard's International. No, it was just I was at the right time at the right place, and I kind of had an advantage over other washboard players because I got to play it at Disneyland originally, at Disney World originally 6 days a week. All the musicians originally worked 6 days a week at Disney World, and then at Disneyland 5 days a week. So I'm playing the thing 7 or 8 hours a day for years. And so I had an advantage over everyone. And I was wearing through washboards. A washboard would last me about 3 weeks, and I'd have a hole in it. Now, I was using regular store-bought galvanized washboards, and I don't know if you know the name Gene Paulson. Gene Paulson was a fabulous tuba player that I had the privilege of playing with at Disney World in the Banjo Kings. And he suggested I go down to the Disney machine shop and see if they can make me one out of stainless steel.
Wow. That's okay. We're frozen a little bit, but we'll get through it here.
Oh, I'm back. I'm back again. Sorry. Anyway, I took a washboard down to the Disney machine shop, and they made me they copied the metal out of stainless steel, and I still have them today. They never wore out.
Wow.
The only thing wore out with the thimbles.
Well,
that was easier to replace than the washboard.
I kind of dipped my toe into that world as well.
Uh-oh.
I used to accompany.
Are you there, Dan?
I'm here. Hello, Earth to Ralph. Am I here? Coming in? Yes? No? Can't hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure why you can't
Aaron,
hear
are you there?
Aaron, he's asking for you.
Okay, I can't do anything.
I know.
Nothing has changed, so.
That's okay. No, are you there?
I'm back again.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Yeah, I used to accompany Bill Mitchell as his washboard player. And so I understand what going through that galvanized metal is like, but I fashioned what I was doing after your resonated washboard. So I had
the double board.
So I had a hinge on mine, and instead of a wood block, I used wooden agogo blocks.
Oh.
And it was a lot of fun. But I used egg beaters. I was one of those guys who used the egg beater.
That's okay.
Because I couldn't take the time to switch between tuba and washboard and tape, you know.
Well, I actually stopped using tape, and for several years I no longer taped on. I just was careful.
Well, that is just so cool. Now, you mentioned your dad played bones.
Yes.
And I know that there's nothing that runs shivers down my spine than somebody approaching the stage with a pair of bones, wanting to sit in. And unfortunately, the same thing happened with washboard players throughout the years. Then unless they were you or one of the better washboard players that I knew of, anytime a guy walked up to the stage with a washboard on, I'd go, oh,
Uh-oh.
no, please.
Uh-oh.
I know, is that uh-oh.
Are you still there?
Yes, maybe I spoke blasphemously of the washboard and it interrupted our signal.
I can't hear. There, I can you hear me now?
Yes, I could hear you the whole time. I was saying I spoke poorly of the washboard for a second there. Maybe that's what happened.
Well, it's when you get a bunch of washboard players together, it's like taking a handful of marbles and throwing them in a dryer at high speed. It can be a little frightening, actually. It's not really true when they say one is good, two's better. That's not. That's like saying that about root canals. It's not the same thing with washboards.
Oh, Ralph, I miss hanging out with you at musicians' lounges. One of the reasons I started this channel was because of how I miss the personalities in what we're doing. And I think probably that's what I miss the most. I can play my tuba at home and I can make virtual this or that online, but having the connection with the people in our business is what made it special for me.
Oh, yeah. Festivals where, I'm really basically a Disney musician, and we were very lucky to be able to do a handful of festivals in the 90s and into the early 2000s there. But that is funny. And what you're doing, Dan, is just great. I've enjoyed listening to do several of your interviews, and it's just fun. And I just think it's super that you're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Where do I send my check?
To 7-Day Hero, Honduras.
Now, speaking of which, you're doing some mission work now, yes?
Yes, we're involved with an organization called 7-Day Hero. They're located, kind of their home base is in Southern California, and Dr. Jerry Hewson is runs that, and he is a supporter. We're under his umbrella that we try to help make a difference in some families here in Honduras. My wife is from Honduras. And as I mentioned, I met her working at Walt Disney World. And it's kind of funny because, I grew up in Laguna Beach, and I was basically a Latin basher. I made fun of Hispanics. And I know God's got a great sense of humor because I'm married to a Hispanic, and I now live in Honduras. And it would be a lot easier if I could actually speak Spanish. But we have the opportunity to, I do a lot of sewing still, and I can help out teaching folks how to use a sewing machine, how to do a few stitches. And then we help just a handful of families and try to make a difference. And I enjoy it. It's a new adventure for me, and it's actually quite exciting.
Wonderful. Speaking of your sewing for a minute, and we'll get back to this, but you just brought a memory to mind when you made me a denim sousaphone cover.
Ah, yes.
Now, what happened to that is I used to use that to fly my sousaphone to festivals. I would wrap my horn in comforters and then zip it up in your denim sousaphone case and put it on the belt at the airlines, and it would arrive in Montana or Texas or Florida, wherever I went, in relatively good shape until I went to United Airlines at LAX, and I was going to Savona, Italy for a cruise, and I put it on the belt at United. And the girl behind the counter looks at me. She says, "Where's your hard case?" I said, "No, I've flown like this all over the country. It's not a problem. I have it wrapped in a comforter, and I have it zipped up in the case, and it's made it fine through years and years of flying around the country." And she looks at me. She goes, "You haven't been to Italy, have you?"
So, yeah, what did you end up with in Italy?
I ended up with a sousaphone with a third valve slides got completely yanked almost into the other direction, which collapsed the third valve itself. And it looked like somebody taken it out of the case and laid it under an elephant for a couple of weeks. And, and so I get off the plane and go to load everything onto the cruise ship. This is when I was with 10th Avenue. And I looked at it, I went, oh. And it was a Sunday. And I know that because Ed Zimbrick looked at me and said, don't worry about it. We'll throw it overboard and buy you something when we get there. After I had unloaded it from the plane. Well, a Sunday in Savona, Italy is not exactly a place where you can buy a lot of tubas.
Everything's closed.
Not only that, and so I actually took it on board, and with a screwdriver and a hammer I borrowed from the maintenance department, I beat it out enough to where the slide would play, but I couldn't get the valve to work properly. And because I had done a 2-valve drum and bugle corps for so long, I played the entire tour with just the first and second valve.
Oh, gosh.
And I'd have to alternate the valves that was used for it. I'd have to use drum corps fingerings, basically. And your case didn't make it through the trip as
I only made a few of those cases. I made one for John Brand, and for Westy had one. You had one, and I don't even know if I made any others. That may have been it.
It was wonderful. Actually, it worked great. I was just an idiot. I should have taken better care of it because it was almost one of a kind. I used to take it when I worked at Knott's Berry Farm to carry my horn in. And I would walk in the back gate there, and some kid would almost inevitably say, "What's in the case, mister?" And I'd say, "Well, it's my sister. She always liked it here." The other line was, isn't it obvious? It's a pizza.
Yeah, big one.
So that's that story. But now, did I notice, speaking of your mission work and your outreach program, did you actually give a bunch of children washboards?
In the past, yes.
I'm just thinking, I was looking at some pictures on your Facebook, and here I see this gang of Honduran children, all with washboards, giving a thumbs up to the camera.
Oh, well.
and which just confirms the fact that you're truly a sick man.
Well, the washboard is still used for washing clothes here in Honduras. Any little home you go to here, where we live, which is not in a big city, they all have these wash basins, and there's a washboard built right into it, or they have one that's a separate piece that they use, and so everyone's got them. They're everywhere. You can buy them in any hardware store. They aren't very good for playing, but they do their job down here.
Well, now that I know that you're actually a bass player, what's to stop you with the wash tubs?
Oh no, there's a limit.
Get those washboards out and turn it into a boom bass and.
Oh no! We've gone too far. Next, we're going to be talking about the jug.
You could form Los Rhythm Rascals. It's hard to roll the R's on that. Rhythm Rascals.
Yeah, there's not much. Well, I haven't done any playing since I've been here in Honduras. I brought a couple of ukuleles with me, but I just break those out for my own enjoyment, sort of. It's kind of hard to do the washboard by itself. Let's sing along with this tune, everybody. It doesn't work real well.
As the Ellis Island Boys, you've had some stellar musicians come play with you guys.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's been a real true. Well, all through Disney World and Disneyland, I've had the opportunity to work with some fine players.
Well, people like Jackie Kuhn, right?
Oh, early on, yeah. He actually lived down in Laguna too, but working with Bill Allred in Florida was just we had some great bass players. Jay Mueller, Gene Paulson was just at the top of the list. Dave Gannett, some great players.
Yeah.
And here at the Ellis Island Boys, we had the opportunity to work with a whole bunch of, rotated in a bunch of really good musicians. There's always players like Doug Maddox and Tom Liston, and of course Brian Shaw on trumpet, and Chloe on clarinet. some just some fine players, and that's what makes it fun.
Did you see my interview with Jim Ziegler?
I saw part of it. Then my internet went out.
He loved playing with you guys so much.
Jim is a, and what a nice guy. Another true gentleman. It's the hardest thing about working with musicians are the personalities, and when you work day in day in, some of them can be it can be challenging.
Yes.
And Jim Ziegler is one of those guys. It's just a dream to play with, and he's a fine musician, just a nice guy. It's nice. It's like yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. That's just so nice. Well, I understand what you're talking about. I mean, I spent some really serious time with both Wesley and Brian Shaw, so I know of what you speak. But, in tremendous musician, I can't remember which interview it was, but I was talking to somebody about the fact of if I could put together the band of my favorite musicians, it would never happen. It would explode before we got to the first set. They're just volatile personalities when they get involved with each other.
Well, they're artists.
Oh my!
And it's a lot more fun when everyone's having fun.
Well, listen, Ralph. I'm so glad you agreed to do this, even through the difficulties of Honduran internet access. But I want to give you a chance here to have some final thoughts or plug where people can hear your music, or why don't you tell people how they can donate to what you're doing now?
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, they can donate through it's 7dayhero.org. And if anyone would like to donate, just indicate Honduras, and Dr. Jerry will make sure that those any donations we will receive them, and that's great. We have a real ministry down here, and it's a lot of fun. And you kind of touched on something there at the very end that's I'll never forget. The entertainment director from Disney, Sonny Anderson, taught me a great lesson. And he said, people listen with their eyes. And if you're smiling and having fun, people are going to see that. And just what we were talking about, working with different musicians, if you're having fun, that's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned. And I'll never forget Sonny Anderson, and I've never forgotten that. People listen with their eyes. And so if you're smiling, you look good, that shows, and you can be the greatest musician in the world, and if you don't look happy, that's a tough sell, unless you're listening on the radio. But if people are watching you, it's another whole thing. Brad Roth brought that up in an interview you did with him about Eddie Peabody, how he could hear Eddie Peabody on the early recordings, but until he got to see how energetic he was on the banjo, and that, wow, you put that talent plus the all the facial expressions and the maneuvers with the hands. That's again, people listening with their eyes. And so I'll never forget that. And if I was to pass one thing on, it would be that. Have fun.
I understand. I'm not going to let you go quite yet because I want to tag on to the fact that a lot of our artiste friends forget who actually pays the paycheck. I relate it, especially to my students, because I used to teach jazz and marching band at a high school level, and I used to tell them, if you're a musician, especially say in a big band setting, first of all, you've got to get along with a section leader, because normally they call the section, and then you've got to get along with the band leader, because he calls the section leader, who calls you, but then you've got to get along with the agent who books the band for the leader, who books the section leader, who books you, and then the guy who runs the venue won't hire you if you've got a bunch of jerks in the band. and then of course he has to advertise to the public, who are actually the people who are taking the money out of their wallet and giving it to the venue, who's giving it to the agent, who's giving it to the band leader, who's giving it to you. So remember who you work for, and that's the audience.
Yeah, that was the best thing about Disney. It was the people on the streets, seeing the smiles of people walking by. You know, that's what made the job. That's what made the job for me. It was fun.
I've always appreciated you and what you do, and your ability to be on stage as a person when you had to be there. That's not easy for everybody.
Well,
and you know what I'm talking about. And plus, you've always supported me in my career, whether you wanted to or not, and I appreciate it.
Dan, you're great. Thanks so much for doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir. And for lack of a better thing to say right now, bless you.
Washboards ahoy.
Yes, sir. Take care now.
Okay. Adios, amigo.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Trad Jazz today. Dan shows new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to check out the archive of past shows, and please give us a thumbs up when you subscribe to the channel. Bye.